sorry, I speak in Spanish. Soy Anaite Vargas, vengo desde Ecuador, en la mitad del mundo de América Latina.
My name is Anaite Vargas. I come from Ecuador, from the very middle of the world in America, in Latin America.
Estoy aquí representando a la Asociación Latinoamericana de Educación Radiofónica ALER.
I'm here representing the Latin American Association for Radiophonic Education.
Y somos parte del Comité Internacional de este Foro Social Mundial de las Migraciones.
And we are part of the International Committee of the World Social Forum on Migration.
De hecho, Quito, Ecuador, fue sede del cuarto Foro Social Mundial, del foro que precedió a este que estamos viviendo en estos días.
In fact, Quito was the fourth World Social Forum, was the destination for the fourth World Social Forum on migration.
Estamos aquí hoy, estamos aquí esta semana para reafirmar el papel activo que debemos tener los medios de comunicación comunitario frente a todo lo que representa la migración alrededor del mundo.
We're here to reassert the active role that local community media should play in representing migration and migrants around the world.
Estamos aquí para reafirmar que no se puede crear ese otro mundo posible que soñamos sin nosotras, sin nuestra voz, sin la voz de los migrantes, de los exiliados, de los refugiados, de los asilados, de los desplazados.
We're here to reassert the fact that we cannot create that world that we all dream of without the voice of migrants, without the voice of refugees, without the voice of those people that are seeking asylum around the world.
Estamos aquí para reafirmar que nuestros derechos no tienen fronteras, para gritarle al mundo que no queremos un planeta sin nuestros sueños, que queremos un mundo en donde todos seamos verdaderos ciudadanos universales.
We're here to reassert our belief in rights which don't have borders, to cry out to the world, but we want a world without, we don't want a world without our dreams, in which we want a world in which all of us are universal citizens, because human rights without migrants are not rights.
Gracias.
Thank you, Anita. To start with, we are now going on our fourth day, and for our third plenary, which we have the theme of reimagining migration, proposing alternative, exploring models and resistance, organization and actions, plus resistance, organizations and actions. To start with our plenary, I'd like to introduce our moderator who will assist us in this plenary. But before that, we will have a short video presentation. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Koen from Triple 11, which is a coalition of NGOs from Belgium. We had a quite successful campaign on climate change these last few months, mobilizing over 80,000 people to sing along with us. You saw a very short video presentation of our song for the climate, Do It Now, on a very popular and well-known tune with activists all over the world. And actually the idea is now that we would sing it together. We will shine the lyrics, if they would come. And the idea is we organized, our volunteers organized over 180 events all over Belgium. As I said, mobilizing more than 80,000 people. In addition to that, 300,000 school children also sang the song. And the whole idea is to send a message to Doha, where right now, in Qatar, the climate conference is being held. And as you all know, climate change is also strongly going to affect migrants. It's going to push people away from their houses. It's going to reduce their livelihoods. So climate change and migration are related. And maybe by singing this song together this morning, we might help strengthen the signal that our leaders in Doha have to do something about climate change. So it's very simple. I'll sing it for you. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. So at far as I'm the same thing, you all know the tune, it's Bella Ciao, you know, the famous communist song, activist song from Italy. So go ahead, give all you have, let's sing this together, okay? 1, 2, 3. We need to wake up, we need to wise up, we need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We're on a planet that has a problem. We've got to solve it, get involved and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. Make it greener, make it cleaner, make it last, make it fast and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. Now a little bit louder. No point in waiting and hesitating. We must get wise, take no more lies and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you can sing it again on concert tomorrow, so everybody can sing it. Okay? To continue with our program, I will introduce to you our moderator. She's the daughter of an immigrant farm worker from the Philippines. Was been involved for many years in grassroots organizing and advocacy in the Filipino community on issues of discrimination and foreign policy. In 1994, she helped to found Migrant Rights International, MRI, a global alliance of migrant associations and other non-governmental organizations. She's currently executive director and co-founder of the National Network of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. She continues to sit on the steering committee of MRI and also on the board of Poverty, Race and Research Action Council in Washington, D.C. Our speaker has been a past recipient of Bannerman Fellowship, an award recognizing outstanding activists of color, and she was recently honored with the Community Activist Award from the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you our moderator for today, Ms. Catherine Takin, National Network of Immigrant and Refugee Rights.
Thank you for that introduction. This is only my second trip to the Philippines, but it's one that is especially memorable for me because, as he mentioned, this is my father's homeland, and I can't help but dwell on the fact that he is one of those migrants who left home very early, at the age of 16, to go to the United States. And as a poor farm worker in California, raising a family, we never had the resources for him to return. In his lifetime in the US, he returned only once to the Philippines to see his mother. Almost 90 years have passed since my father left Sual, Pangasinan, a very small town in the northern Philippines. But here we are today, addressing many of the same conditions that propelled him to move, for his family to sacrifice, for him to leave for a better life, and hopefully to help their family. And these are questions that are still in front of us today. He was part of what has been called the first wave of Filipino migration to the U.S. And as we've learned in our discussions here, especially with our colleagues from the Philippines, we've learned a lot more about the conditions that continue to propel Filipino migrants to also leave their families behind in search of a better life. This is the final plenary, and as it's mentioned, we are combining two of the four themes for this World Social Forum on migration: reimagining migration, proposing alternatives, exploring models, and resistance, organization, and action. And I know that sounds overwhelming, but fortunately I'm joined by a panel whose brief descriptions in the program cannot do justice to the wealth of experience and contributions they have each made towards building a more just world. Please join me in welcoming the panelists for this morning. So I can ask our six panelists to join me here on the stage. Henry. Are we missing anyone? Okay, I would just like to mention the names of who is joining me here on this stage. Sama, Henry Saragi, Empilo Magani Butani, I missed that. Asbar Khan, Ambat Yuson, and Pablo Solon. Please, again, welcome them. So let's begin, because I think we are all anxious to have this conversation and also to move into the final workshops of the Social Forum. I think we have a lot of pressure on us in both this plenary and in our workshops to move towards proposals for action, for resolution, so that we really make the Social Forum not just a source of dialogue and networking, but also a space to strategize and develop plans of action to address the issues before us. So we will begin. I'm going to give a more specific introduction to each of our panelists and ask them to speak a few minutes about the themes, the ideas, the focus that they would like to bring to all of us this morning. And then I'm going to ask them some questions. I think you've seen the other two plenaries. So our idea in these sessions is to have a conversation, both among the panelists and with everyone here in the audience. And we will try to leave as much time as possible, the last hour, for questions and answers from the audience, so that this truly is participatory. We are asking that people will speak briefly and in all of their comments and be respectful of the interventions and participation of their colleague panelists. And we would also ask the same of everyone here. In the questions that you're posing, just a reminder to please be brief and be respectful of the opportunity for others to also participate in this discussion. So I'm going to begin. Let me introduce Asfar Khan, who is with the International Labor Organization's regional office in Beirut, Lebanon. Asfar is the Senior Migration Policy Specialist for the Arab states based at the ILO regional office in Beirut. He joined the ILO in 1995 and has served in a number of capacities as a technical advisor on population and poverty, as a development economist, and as the Senior Migration Policy Advisor in the International Migration Program. Asfar?
Thank you very much, Catherine. It's a singular pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak at this forum. And this is really being in the spotlight, you know. Well, as Catherine mentioned, that I represent the ILO. And ILO, I'm sure most of you know what the ILO is. It's a UN organization which has a constitutional mandate on labor issues relating to the generation of employment, social protection, efficiency of production, and also the protection of the standards and the conventions that it advances. But I'm sure you don't want to hear what the ILO is all about, but what the ILO is actually doing in the field of migration and what it intends to do as we go forward. But before I do that, I would like to place this whole issue of migration in a particular context, in a broader context. And that context is actually defined by what I would call the world of work. And the world of work, my friends, is actually in quite a mess. It's an absolute mess that we find out there. About 2 weeks ago, I was rereading the UK white paper of the United Kingdom government on making globalization work for the poor. And there was a sentence there which said that globalization has created unprecedented opportunities for sustainable development and for poverty reduction. I didn't know whether I should laugh or should I cry, you know, when I read that. And the thing is that what we see is the evidence quite to the contrary, where we find that the employment opportunities for people are dwindling all over the world. Many people don't have adequate and safe jobs. They don't have proper contracts. They work in very precarious situations. Many of the people are working outside their specialization. In my area of work, I've come across many people coming from this region who are qualified nurses working as domestic workers, people with master's level degrees working as domestic workers, PhDs, driving taxis, and even picking fruits in southern Spain and in Britain. And so that's the kind of a situation. What we also see is that skills development, the opportunities for people to develop the skills are also dwindling because the access to educational opportunities has receded quite a lot with the privatization and liberalization policies that have been followed. The workplace and environment is worsening, the occupational safety and health conditions are worsening, and income generation situations are also very bad, as the wages have been quite depressed, the benefits, people are losing the benefits that were their natural entitlements. So all of these things are happening. But the main concern of what can stop this is, I feel, is that the workers are losing their voice. This is the key. Representation is all about having a voice. It is an instrumental need because through voice you can have an optimal way of advancing and defending an interest. Voice is needed in the sphere of work, mainly for negotiating on wages and working conditions, but it is also needed for monitoring working conditions, for information gathering, and for advancing, I would say, evaluating the impact of policies on the work processes. So it's needed at all levels of social policy, from decision making, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And I would like to leave you with one other comment, which I just read this morning by chance. This came from the Nobel Peace Prize laureates. And the comment that they made in 2001 was that the greatest threat to world peace is not going to come from the irrational acts of any individual, but from the legitimate demands, mind you, the legitimate demands of the world's dispossessed. Keep that thought and we'll come back to it.
Thank you, Asfar. Our next speaker is Ambet Yusung with Building Woodworkers International, and if you know as BWI. Ambet was appointed as the new regional representative at the first Building and Woodworkers International Asia Pacific Regional Conference in 2007, and joined BWI's predecessor in 1997 as the project coordinator for the union's trade union and education project in the Philippines. He was also the regional health and safety coordinator there and moved to the headquarters in Geneva to become the education secretary in 2002 and eventually BWI in 2005. Ahmed.
Thank you. Magandang umaga mga kasama. Good morning, comrades. It's nice to speak in my own language. No? It's been a long time, and it's good to be back here. And it also feels good to be here participating in the World Social Forum on Migration. You know, as the General Secretary of the Building and Woodworkers International, we have normally participate in global events where we try to make sure that trade union voices are heard in international events. So recently we have the Global Forum on Migration and Development, and then now in Qatar, the Climate Change Conference. There are a lot of trade union delegation, and then the ITU is also going to have an international conference. But I'm glad that I decided to come here in the World Social Forum on Migration. Is it correct? Yes. Because it is here where you listen, where you hear the real issues of the people. It is in this forum where you build solidarity. We don't make agreements, we don't make negotiations like they do in Doha now. But the change starts now. And I think building solidarity is giving us the inspiration to move and act and change the world. And thank you very much for inviting me in this forum. I'd like to highlight 3 points. One is maybe a little bit when they ask what is the alternative. For us it's very clear: global unionism and global social movement. It is the alternative that we need to have. People are talking about UN high-level dialogue, global forum, etc. But I think the real alternative is to build a global movement. I come from, we call it the global unions. So my organization is Building and Woodworkers International. We have 12 million members in 135 countries. And there are other global unions like us, 10 of us, and they belong to different industries. We have the food, we have the hotels, we have the commercial, the public sector, and we are formed there. I'm saying this, migration is a labor issue. Majority of the migrants have labor issues, and the trade union has to address it. And for us, we have to rethink how trade union really works. We have to have organized members beyond borders. We have to recruit. So we are working now, of course, of this principle of same work, same place of work, equal rights, and equal benefits. Anywhere in the world, wherever you go, you should have the same benefit as the locals. And then you should be part of the collective agreement in any country. So this is the kind of work that we are pushing. We are also having global agreements with multinational companies, and it means it applies to all workers, including migrant workers. I can say more, but we recently had a negotiation last week with one of the biggest cement company, Lafarge, and we succeeded in including migrants issues in our global agreement. Number 2, I think the second point that I'd like to give you is the ILO recently made a decision. With the new leadership of the ILO, Guy Ryder, and the governing board decided to take up the migration issue as its priorities. And we are working now that there will be a tripartite conference just for the issue of migration. And this is an opportunity for us. And I'd like to invite the NGO movement, the migrant communities, to be part of it. I think this is not just a business for the trade union, it is our business. But as you know, ILO is limited in terms of its own trade union representation, but we have to rethink how ILO works. We have to rethink how trade union works. And I think you should be part of that movement. And I think we already had a success, Elizabeth. I think one example is how we won on the domestic convention. This is done jointly by the trade union, by the migrant groups, by the domestic organization, and the NGOs. I think we can do that again, right? The last point, I will not tell you, I don't have grand plans of a global movement or global strategy. I'm very pragmatic and tactical. And I'm an organizer. What we need is to win. Let's take some small win. Now I would like to propose. Let's target, if we want to show that we can do it, if we want to show that all of us, the social movement, can make a difference, let's join forces and target a country. Our proposal is to target Qatar. We are having a campaign. Without workers' rights, there can be no World Cup in Qatar in 2022. It is our campaign saying that, the World Cup is, of course, the icing in the cake. But the point is, workers' rights, migrant rights should be respected in Qatar. They're going to build stadiums in Qatar for the World Cup. 99% of construction workers in Qatar are migrant workers. There is no labor laws. They have no right to negotiate for their benefits. There is no union. They have no right to join the union. Why not join forces? Maybe we can create a World Social Forum in action. We have to do some action. And we should join forces and target Qatar. And let's see if we can win this fight. It's not acceptable that the climate change is happening in Qatar now. And then do we want to have international event in Qatar? And then they just close their eyes on the issues of migrant workers? I think we should not allow that. If you are with me, please join us in our campaign against Qatar.
Okay, we will get back to that. Okay, our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Pablo Salom, who is the new executive director at Focus on the Global South. He is an activist, writer, and policy analyst in the areas of trade, finance, development, climate, and the environment. He was most recently the ambassador of Bolivia to the United Nations from 2009 to 2011, and before that was the extraordinary ambassador of Bolivia for integration and trade. He is most well known for championing the rights of nature and the fight for climate justice in the international climate negotiations when he was the chief negotiator of Bolivia. Pablo.
Thank you very much. I want to speak about other dimensions of migrations. I think we have to open our mind. It's very important to see the issue of labor migrants, but there are other migrations that are going to take place and are already taking place. One has to do with climate migration. According to the data of the International Organization on Migration, there is already 50 million migrants because of natural disasters that are related to climate change. We don't know exactly how these figures are going to grow, but they are going to grow. Some say 200 million by 2050, 1,000 million, but this is a new cause. migration is not only because people will be seeking to work in another place, but because they are going to be affected by climate change. Now, climate change is not a natural disaster. It's caused by the capitalist system. So if we want to address the issue of migration, we have to address the structural causes that are behind migration. We have to challenge those structural causes that are forcing people to migrate because they're losing their jobs here and they have to migrate, or because their territory is being flooded because of climate change. And in this case, when you look at it from the perspective of climate change, the first right is the right to not migrate. People have to have that right, and we will have to fight for that. That means you cannot keep burning my house, because of course I will have to leave my house if you do that. And you're burning my house with your greenhouse gas emissions. So from this forum, we have to clearly send a message to the other meeting that's taking place in Qatar. Because the biggest developing countries, US in first place, the European Union, but also China, are not really doing what they have to do in order to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions now. And what we are going to see as a consequence is a process of huge migration. And we have to have a different approach also to the issue of migration. If I burn your house, the least I can do is to welcome you in my house. So, if the European Union, if the US, Japan, don't reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, how is it that they can have restrictions to migrants that have to migrate because they're being affected by the climate change that their greenhouse gas emissions are causing? So, I think we have to have a much broader approach. And in that sense, we have to also think beyond the current system. We need a different kind of society. This society, the capitalist system, is leading us to this situation. In the new world that we want universal citizenship. People should be able to move without this kind of restriction. What we are seeing right now is goods. You know, the WTO is going to have the meeting in Bali. They are discussing how the free movement of goods, of services, but not about persons. And the first issue for humanity is the free movement of persons. We are all product of different processes of migration that have taken place all over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. I'd like to next introduce, on my right, Impilo Shange Lutani from the Consortium of Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. She is the executive director of the consortium. She has worked in the human rights field for over a decade, and I hear has extensive knowledge and experience of working in the migration sector, especially highlighting the plight of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants in South Africa. She is especially interested in the intersection between foreign and domestic policy and has done research on the interplay between these two policy streams. She is a fellow of the Transatlantic Forum on Migration and Integration, coordinated by the German Marshall Fund of the US and the Robert Bosch Stiftung Fund.
Thank you. Hello? Yes, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As my colleagues have said, we really appreciate this opportunity to have been invited